All right, so welcome back to another episode here on the YouTube channel. I am going to answer a question that I got recently from someone in my DMs on Instagram. And that question has to do with whether or not you can only shoot outside as a brand photographer. So let's go ahead and jump right into that answer. All right, so can you only shoot outside as a brand photographer? So as I mentioned, got asked this question a few weeks ago on Instagram. So I'm just going to answer it here and some thoughts about that because I think it's a question that a lot of photographers have, especially if they're considering pivoting into brand photography. So my initial thought and response on this was, well, sure, I'm sure there is a way to build your brand photography business and only shoot outdoors. But that has a caveat. I think if you were to do that, you really need to hone in on what and who you're serving. Like what brands or businesses out there would really only benefit from an outdoor shoot. So think about what types of businesses that makes sense for. I have to say most of my clients want indoor sessions or at least partially indoors. Now I work a lot with personal brands. These brands may want imagery in a lifestyle setting, in a home setting where they can cozy up on the couch, where maybe they want to be in a kitchen, having a snack or working on their laptops in the island, things like that. So for me, a lot of my clients do want that indoor session. That doesn't mean that that's all that you have to shoot. You can certainly specialize in those brands that want to focus on outdoor sessions. Now, let's back up a minute and think, okay, why are you asking this question? Now, I think when photographers want to pivot to brand photography, there's this big fear about shooting indoors, mainly because if you're a wedding photographer or family photographer, maybe you're used to just shooting with natural light, and the idea of going inside where the natural light may not be as good as maybe a sunset family session on a beach somewhere, and you might start to think to yourself, how am I going to make this work? Can I just make it work by doing outdoor sessions? You may also be unsure about how to actually go about like booking a location or who pays for that, all the like little questions that are like passing through your mind, and it may immediately make you feel super overwhelmed in pivoting to brand photography. But I want you to know that I had some of those same fears when I pivoted to brand photography. I was mainly a natural light photographer with the exception of using off-camera flash during wedding receptions, maybe a little bit indoors. I really didn't use it that much. I was comfortable when I did use it, but I wasn't using it a lot. So I want you to start asking yourself why you're asking those questions and if there's ways to get around that and allowing you to fully embrace brand photography. So getting back to that question, can I only shoot outdoors? Sure, but I would recommend thinking about what brands that make sense for. It may not always make sense, and it may end up holding you back with working with a variety of branding clients. So one example that I have for you specifically is one of my very first full paying clients. She came to me, she got in touch, and she was like, I think her subject line in her email was like, my website sucks, please help me. I went to her website. It really wasn't in great shape. She was a personal concierge nurse, what basically meant that she provided on-location nursing services to high-end luxury clients. Now, her website did not speak to that at all. Like, it was in terrible shape, the design. And then the banner image, like her front image was like her in scrubs with a laptop outside at a park. It made no sense at all. Like for her to be like in scrubs outside on a laptop with a stethoscope. Sure, she's a nurse, but do we have to be that obvious? Is that going to convey this high luxury brand that she was trying to create? No, it did not make sense. It made more sense to have a beautiful indoor location where she could be properly dressed, maybe with a lab coat. And that's ultimately what we went with. And it turned out fantastic. Now her website looks way more professional because of that. So you need to start thinking about those brands that it makes sense. Maybe they're outdoor brands, maybe they're adventure brands, maybe they're lifestyle brands, and that's what you focus on. So if the indoor situation freaks you out, think about what type of brands you can really specialize so that you can really focus on shooting outdoors. Now, here are some tips. I've wrote down some tips for you to start thinking about to get comfortable moving forward towards brand photography if the idea of like shooting indoors still really freaks you out, whether it's the lighting or the logistics. So number one, go now to start getting a list of locations like in your back pocket, like the ones that you know will be great to shoot at. So those ones with the really big windows or great natural light, or they're just beautiful and it'll photograph well. Get those locations and have those be your preferred locations, so that when you have a client, you're like, oh yes, these locations will get you the light and bright look that you see in my portfolio. I highly recommend that you choose from this list, so that way you don't have to like stress about it, and you're just going to basically usher them into making a decision on a location that will work for you and that you're confident with. The other thing that you want to do is start getting used to working with flash or off-camera lighting. Start doing that practice. So that's pretty much what I did. Anytime I had a shoot where I knew the lighting was going to be tough, I would literally bring my husband out and start working with my flash in the house and start getting comfortable with that. I do have a lot of behind the scenes with flash in my story highlights for my Instagram. I will link that up into the description of the video. And then if you're at a point where you're like thinking you want to make this jump to brand photography, I do have the course, the Brand Photographer Method. If you're not quite ready to dive into that, I would encourage you guys to grab my 5-step guide. It kind of follows what you would need to do and what I dive into deeper with the course. I will link that up as well. So hopefully this answers your question as to whether or not you can only shoot outdoors as a brand photographer. Hope you guys enjoy and stay tuned for the next episode.